Hello, welcome to Honors Geometry. This is week 1, and today we're going to take notes on vocabulary numbers 1 through 14. So what you see right now are the week 1 notes. You hopefully have printed these out if you had that ability so that you can fill them in as you watch the video. If not, there's a Kami option that you can take the notes that way, and then you may also just have pen and paper and you'll be writing these by hand. So you'll have the ability to pause and slow things down for yourself so that you can write and copy as we go if you need to. All right, so to get started, we're going to talk about some vocabulary words that go with segments and planes. The first 3 words, I'm going to slide this up a little bit, are point, line, and plane. And you'll notice under definition that these are undefined terms. In geometry, that's what these 3 are considered. It's not that they don't have any meaning, but Euclid is the mathematician that kind of gets credit for the type of geometry that we are learning. And he started with these 3 just basic facts: point, line, and plane. All right, so to draw a point, obviously it looks like a dot. We use capital letters to name them. Okay, so over here in the column, how to name, that's what I want you to write. We're going to use capital letters, always. And then when you look at that picture, you would read it as point A. All right, a line, always straight. So we never have to say it's a straight line. All right, it's just understood to be, but you have the arrows at each end. Now, a line is made up of an infinite number of points. What we're going to do is we're just going to draw 3. They don't need to be evenly spaced, any 3 points. And we'll just keep with the alphabet, so we'll use B, C, and D. And the way that you name a line is you use any 2 letters that you see on that line. All right. Use any 2 letters to name. All right, so I might pick B and C as the 2 letters, but when I look at that, to know that that is a line, I have to put a proper symbol above it. And of course, the proper symbol looks just like a line. It'll be a straight segment with arrows at both ends. All right, if you reverse the letters, line CB, that's acceptable as well. Okay. We might grab B and D. And then, of course, reverse it. And then, of course, we have maybe C and D. And reverse it. The other way as we progress through the course that you might see lines labeled is with a cursive lowercase letter out here by one of the arrows. The popular ones that are used are cursive L, M, and N. So if you looked at this picture, we can either grab 2 points like we just did, or we can just call it line L. Okay? But remember, just 2 letters. Right? A plane, as far as looking at a picture, it's a flat surface. And so the picture that's typically used is a parallelogram. All right, couple different ways when you look at a plane, again, using lowercase letters usually, they'll use cursive lowercase letters and put one in the corner. Okay. Or there might be points on this plane. There might be lines on the plane, but there must be at least 3 points on the plane to use that to name it. Okay, so just for this picture, this would be called plane D. And again, make sure the D looks cursive. Okay, or we're going to use 3 points to name. Now, a better picture to show with using 3 points is actually to show a box. All right. So this is my box. I'm going to draw a rectangle or square. I'm going to draw the same size rectangle or square kind of overlapping like that. And then I'm going to connect the corners. Down, 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 down. All right, so I get this 3-dimensional box. Now let's shade in this side. What we really have, we have 6 different planes, right? We have a top and a bottom, a front and a back, and then the 2 sides. We've got 6 different planes that create this box, right? Let's give some names to the vertices. So let's do A, B, C, D, all the way around, E, F. All right, there'd be G back here in the corner. And then we've got H right here. Right. Now, all these sides of our rectangles, those would be segments, and we'll talk about segments in a minute. The corners where they meet actually are then points, individual points. So notice that's why I'm using capital letters again to name. Okay. Now, the side that we shaded in, if I wanted you to name that plane, we wouldn't name all 4 corners. We would just pick 3. So this could be plane, maybe we would do HCD. We might call it plane EHC. There are lots and lots and lots of names that we can give this, all right? So let's put those in quotes because that's how we would say it, and that's how you'll also read it. Okay. Please remember, those 3 terms are your undefined terms. Okay. All right, slide up. So we've got line segment. Line segment, it's a portion of a line, but it's going to have endpoints. All right, so it's a portion of a line consisting of endpoints and all the points that lie between them. So again, always understood to be straight, but no arrows this time. You're going to have a point and you're going to have a point. Okay. These endpoints, which I'll call G and H, that's the only 2 letters that you can use to name a segment. All right, so you're going to name using only the endpoints. It's my little abbreviation for endpoints. So we would call it segment GH. Again, without a line over it, it's not a shape or a symbol of any kind. So you got to have the right symbol, which is just a segment, no arrows. You can reverse the letters, and this could also be segment HT. Right? Now, when we don't put letters, if we just had GH and HG, no symbol, all right, no symbol, that means the measure of. So no symbol means the measure of. All right, array. Array is also a portion of a line that starts at an endpoint. You also might hear the word initial point. And then it continues forever in one direction. So we start with a point, goes off in some direction, and then it's going to have an arrow because it's part of a line. Now, there's going to need to be a second point on that ray. I use the letters J and K for this. The way we name is we are going to name using 2 points, but we have to name the endpoint first. So you name using 2 points, but must state the endpoint or initial point first. All right, so this ray, we have to start with J and then pick one other point that it goes through. The symbol always points to the right. Notice it's a ray, okay? So the ray symbol always points right. Because you might be looking at a picture and the ray is going to go this way. Let's call this M. Okay. So just because the ray is pointing to the left doesn't mean we draw the symbol left. All right, but we name the point that's the end point, which is M. Pick one other point that it goes through, which in this case would be N, and the symbol always goes to the right. Okay, so we want to make sure that we are always naming and labeling our lines, our segments, our rays, our planes, and our points correctly. All right, collinear, very simply, the word co, right, means same. If you have a co-worker, you work at the same place. And then, of course, linear means line. So that's its definition, right? It means things are on the same line. Co-planar, and notice planar is not ER, it's AR, all right, would be the same plane. That's the definition. All right, so that's our first page. Go ahead and turn the page. We are now on number 8. All right, opposite rays. If we have a ray CD and a ray CB, and they are opposite rays, right, then that means that points B, C, and D are collinear, which we just learned means on the same line. Now notice both the rays start with the same letter, and they should if they're going to be opposite, all right, meaning we've got one ray that is heading in one direction and the other is going in the exact opposite. First of all, you're going to end up with a straight line. The name of your opposite rays must be the point that is what we call in between. All right, and then it doesn't matter which side is which, but if one ray is CD, I'll have that going to the left, and the other is CB. That one will be coming to the right. Okay, so pay attention to how they name the ray. That way you'll know which one goes in between. And just remember, collinear, you'll always have a straight line. All right, I just used the word between. If we're told that a point is between two others, and in this case, X is between Y and Z, again, then those 3 points must be collinear. So whenever you see that word, you can go ahead and draw yourself a line. Now, being between does not mean right in the middle. It's a habit, I think, a lot of us where we like to put that point right in the middle, but it doesn't have to be. So I'm going to do this very intentionally. I'm going to put X here, but if it's between Y and Z, I'm going to put Y very close and I'm going to put Z further away. All right, just to remind ourselves that it does not have to be right in the middle. The word intersection. Intersection, two lines will always intersect at a point. All right, so let's draw that. So I've got line here, line here. All right, let's label them. And remember, the other way to name them is to use the lowercase cursive. So we'll call one line L. I'll call the other one M. Make it kind of look fancy and cursive. And where they intersect is a point. Okay, and of course we label those with capital letters, so we'll call that point A. Just taking you back to algebra, you learned about systems of equations, right? And systems of equations is when you have two linear equations. The solution was always where they intersected, which was a point. Two planes. Two planes will intersect always at a line. All right. If you're looking at a picture, though, it might just look like a segment, not an actual line with arrows. All right, we want to draw that box again. So we want to draw a rectangle, rectangle. All right, connect. All right. I'm going to shade in this side, and I'm going to shade in the front. Where those two intersect is right here, and then I'm going to extend it to emphasize. All right, that's a line, and that's a line. All right, almost done. Congruent segments. We are going to use this word congruent a lot. All right, when you hear the word congruent, things have the same measure. So if we have congruent segments, then we have two segments that have the same measure. All right, so remember these go together. All right, congruent means same measure. All right, so what would that picture look like? So what I want you to do is draw two segments that look as if they are the same length. We don't need to get a ruler out, just eyeball it. We'll call one segment AB and one segment CD. If you look at those two segments, you can never tell me that they are congruent simply because they look like they're congruent. They must be labeled in a certain way to show that they are. And the way that we do that is we use tick marks. All right, as long as you put the same number of tick marks on each segment, then you can show that they're congruent. Single tick marks is fine. You'll see that I use double tick marks probably more often just because it just visually makes it stand out a little better to me. All right, so over here, remember this column was how to name. So we're going to use tick marks to label the picture. Now, the symbol for congruent. Actually, let's write the names first. So we've got segment AB. We'll put the bar over it, no arrow. Leave some space in here. And then we've got segment CD. And the way we say congruent is we put an equal sign and then it has a little squiggly over it. All right, so this is our congruent symbol right there. All right, midpoint. A midpoint is a point, and this point divides a segment into two congruent smaller segments. All right, so if we draw a segment, we'll call this EF. Now again, we're not going to get a ruler out and be exact, but we can eyeball where the middle is. So it's about right here. We like to use the letter M for midpoint. And if we're going to need to show that we have two smaller congruent segments, then again, we must have tick marks, either one on each side, double ones like I just did, but we want to do something to show that they are the same. Now, as far as writing it, we can say segment EM is congruent to segment MF. Now, as we learned above, though, congruent means same measure. So if I wanted to show that they're the same measure, then I would take the bar away and just use equal. Okay, so this would be a measure equals a measure. This is a segment congruent to a segment. All right, segments aren't equal and measures aren't congruent, and you will get used to that. All right, but we got to, again, we want to practice writing things properly, saying them properly. All right, segment bisector. This is a line or it might be a line segment, or it might be a ray that passes through the midpoint of a segment. Okay, so now we're not going to draw every situation, but let's just draw a segment. Call it GH. Let's eyeball where the middle is. We'll again call that M. I'm just going to use single tick marks this time. Any line segment, or ray that passes through this middle, this midpoint, is considered a segment bisector because that's what it's doing. It's bisecting, splitting this into two equal parts. So just pick one of those things. I'm going to draw a line. All right, I'll call this line L. And then we would say line L is a segment bisector of segment GH. And our final vocabulary word today is the word parallel, which hopefully you remember from Algebra 1. In geometry, though, our lines, our segments, or planes, these are, lines, segments, or planes that do not intersect. In algebra, we spend a lot of time talking about their slopes and how they have the same slopes. In geometry, the proper definition is that they do not intersect. All right, so we've got a line. I'll draw one that looks like it's going in the same direction at the same angle, same slope. Again, we're going to call one line L, the other one cursive M. And the way that we label to show that these are parallels, we're going to put a double arrow, either at the left end or right end of our picture. Again, just looking at that, you can't tell me they're parallel because they look like they are. They must be labeled properly. So we're going to put an extra arrow at that end. We could have put it at the other. And then the way that we write it is we'll say cursive L, and then we actually just use two slanted lines like that to show it's parallel to line M. Now, if we wanted, I want you to draw the box again. And let's color in, because I needed the full box. Let's color in the top and the bottom. All right, and let's label. Let's see, where do we leave off up there? Let's use I, J, K, L, M, N. And then we'll put O back here in the corner and P right here. So if I wanted to say that the plane, which is the top, is parallel to the plane, which is now the bottom, remember 3 letters. So I'm going to pick JKP. So I'm going to say JKP is parallel, and then pick 3 letters down here. They do not need to be the letters that are right above or below. So I'm going to pick M, N, and O. Okay. So we want to make sure we're labeling things, writing things, and as we get used to talking to each other, we'll say things properly. All right. Go back and watch any part that you need to, and use these notes, please, to do the assignment.